Call the meeting to order of the Public Safety Committee for the July meeting. It's good to have each and every one of you here, and those of you that are on by virtual, we appreciate each and every one of you that are here. Before beginning, we have to read a statement dealing with the electronic meeting determination. This meeting of the Public Safety Committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Do I have that motion? Have that motion made by Commissioner Sereno. Do I have a second? Second over here by Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P? Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you for that vote. I believe we have two that are on here by Zoom, and we'll go into our regular minutes and meetings. So the first thing on our agenda this evening is approval of minutes. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Chairman, I have reviewed the minutes and find them to be in order and on the June 17th meeting and move for their approval.
I have a motion for their approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. We'll begin with the first item, and we'll start with Paul's. And this evening, I remembered you. Michael?
I appreciate that. For June, you can see that we had 664 animals come into the shelter. Down at the bottom, you can see that we had a euthanasia percentage of 4.4%. Live release rate for our dogs was 95.3, our cats was 93.4, and overall 91.5% live release. Surgery programs have really been ramped up since we started back after COVID. They did 222 surgeries during the month of June and 96 animals through the TNR program. You can see over on the next page our activity. Those are down just a titch. We've had 1,769 calls that were completed for the month, and we traveled 12,000 miles. Year to date, well, for fiscal year 2019 and 20, you can see that we took in 6,527 animals. You can see there on the bottom of that our euthanasia percentage was 5.6%. Last year it was 6%, so we came down 0.4%. And our live release rate for the last fiscal year was 91.9%. The year prior it was 91.5%. Again, you can see the call volume there. We handled 20,279 calls for the fiscal year and traveled over 144,000 miles. The next page of the report is our rabies exposure and bite report. Whereas the activity report goes fiscal year, this goes calendar year. We had 32 bites that reported for the month. 2 of those tested. One of those came back as unsatisfactory, which counts as a positive. On our other exposure, we had 9 reported, 4 tested, and 1 of those came back as unsatisfactory as well. 1 being a groundhog out in the Buchanan zone, 1 being a skunk out in Rockville. On your iPad, you should see a chart that I've been including for the last several months that shows our animal outcomes, just so you can see visually our live release versus our euthanasia and other outcomes. And this month I also included a report that I've included for the last several years. Once we finish out a fiscal year, I like to be able to take and look at data over several fiscal years. That way we can kind of see where we are and where we're tracking. So you can see that for 1920, you can see that blue column. I like to look to see what came in minus our surgeries. That way we're kind of comparing apples to apples. So we had 4,599 animals come in that were not included in our surgery programs, 1,936 that were. And then you can see the breakdown by dog, cat, and other down there, and it shows our live release for the fiscal years as well. So we're moving in the right direction. We've kind of gotten a lot of the low-hanging fruit. Now the percentages that we'll see are going to be a little bit harder to come by, but we are working on those to make even an additional impact. To go along with my report, I did want to let you know and I let the mayor know this earlier. We had applied, we were made known about a one-time in-kind donation of masks from an organization called greatergood.org. We did apply for that. It was no county money. They're going to be sending us 5,000 3-ply masks with a value of $5,000 for us to use for our staff and for the members of the public coming to the shelter. And that is all my report, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on his report? Right. Have a motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Sereno. I call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Yes, go ahead.
I do have a grant that I've been made aware of. I did ask the mayor's permission last week to apply, and I'll be working on that this week with your all's permission. It's through the Petco Foundation. We've applied for them several times over the years. We have a current grant that we're working with them now. There is no cost to the county. It just basically has to be used for life-saving measures. This year, we're looking at being able to enhance some supplies and materials for our foster program and possibly doing some upgrades to the play yard equipment. Do not have an amount yet. Like I said, I'll be working on writing that this week. Last year, I think we applied for $62,000. They gave us $30,000. So we'll see where it comes to, and that's what we'll apply for.
Okay, so you're basically just reporting the grant and that you will be applying for it. Just needing permission to apply.
So moved.
Motion made to move. Do I hear a second? Have the second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, I see you found another skunk out at Rockville besides me. All right, I believe we have the sheriff's office now. And we won't treat you like we do the sheriff, so you just go right ahead and give the report.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have amendments starting out tonight. The first one that you'll see is insurance checks, recognized revenue from 2 insurance checks going into new vehicles account. The second one is a teen traffic safety grant that is $1,000 left from the previous year that we're just moving over into other supplies. The next one you see is for the COPS Hiring Program Award Grant, and it's just moving money into the salaries and the benefits. And let's see, the next one is the Law Enforcement Liaison Grant. It's actually, the money was put in the wrong account to begin with, so they're moving it to the right account, which is in service training. Basically, that one is. Go to the next one, the DEA one, or do y'all want to vote on that one first, these others?
Okay.
The next amendment is the DEA special purpose, which is different account. That one is requesting funds from the special purpose, the DEA, moving them into the expense accounts.
They are all out of different accounts, aren't they?
The first ones that we were talking about are all in the county general accounts.
Okay.
And this last one that we were talking about is the DEA special purpose account, which is different.
Why don't we approve those that are in that general account?
Okay.
As one, or all together, and then we'll do the other one separate.
Okay.
Well, that satisfactory, gentlemen? Okay. Then we'll just be looking for a motion to approve that all those together is on the general account.
Move to
I have a
approve.
motion that was made over here, and I think was Mr. Gurley. Is that, have the second?
Yes, I move to approve.
Okay, and I think Commissioner Gammon seconds that. You want to call the roll?
Commissioner Ryder?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. All right, your second one?
Okay, this is the one that was going from the DEA, the special purpose. It's just where at the first of the fiscal year, they moved the money at that point into these expense line items.
Okay, we'll be looking for a motion on this one. Do we have a motion? Have a motion from Commissioner Rather. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second, Commissioner Serino, I believe. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
And then we also need to ask approval tonight to apply for the 2020 Burn Jag Grant. This is the grant that we go in with the city, and it's for night vision. We do this every year. So we just need to ask for approval to do this grant again this year.
Is the night
Mr.
vision
Chairman,
kits?
I'd make
It's for
that
the night
motion.
vision.
We have that motion that's been made by Commissioner P. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Gammon. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we have, except for the reports. If y'all want to
Okay,
look at the
let's-
reports.
Any questions on the report that we have there? Or anything you would like to discuss or mention? Anyone? Have approval of the report then, a motion to approve? Commissioner Gammon moves to approve. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Rather, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to move on down to number 5, down to Osha. And we'll ask that this will come forward. I think Mr. Elam's coming forward. I have a problem seeing every now and then. I fog up. I'm looking at 3 screens, a book, and trying to deal with like a horse with a feed bag on. So, thank you, sir. Don't know how long it's going to last tonight, so we'll see.
Okay, for the month of June, you'll see the OSHA reports, the total number of accidents, you'll see 14. Year-to-date, you'll see 74. OSHA summary, total recordables 56. Restricted day claims, there's 38. And lost day claims, there's 8. Other recordables, there's 10. On-the-job injury claims, in 2018, there was 14. 2019, there's 16. And then this time you had 14. Year-to-date totals, 2018 is 124. Year-to-date total 2019 was 134. And then for 2020, there's 74. On-the-job injury incurred dollars for 2018, you'll see that there's 28,000. 2019, there's 268,000. And then for 2020, you see $282,000. Cause of injuries, Board of Education, you can see they had 7. County General had 6, and the Highway Department had 1. And in the County General, you'll see that the Sheriff's Department had 2, Paul's had 3, and the Fire and Rescue had 1. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any questions on the report?
Quick, Ed, if you don't mind, 7 injuries in the Board of Education.
Yes, sir.
Were they school-related or administrative office-related, or where were they?
Give me just a second. Slips. Yeah, you have the maintenance people that are in there. Since schools were out, you have your maintenance people doing a lot of stuff that they would be doing during the summer months. And from what I can tell on the report and speaking with Dan, you had some falls. You had someone stepping off a truck that slipped, stepping off of the truck. And another fall.
Mostly maintenance-related.
They were maintenance-related, yes, sir.
Other questions?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved. Commissioner Phillips, any have a second? Second, Commissioner Rather, call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Recovery Court report. Ms. Breedy. I am smiling under here if you.
So as you can see, this month we started getting new participants in through the court system. Court, while it's getting off to a slow start, we are starting to see more hearings and more court dates set. So we did get 6 new participants in the month of June, and I do anticipate that that will continue to rise monthly from here on out. We have a total of 119 current participants. Again, I foresee that that's going to grow. Our census had gotten a little bit lower just because of the courts closing and just because of COVID. You can see the demographic breakdown, and on the last page of the report, on page 4, it goes over all of the different classes that we're currently hosting in our office space. And I wanted to make sure to focus on that because I think that is important for the commission to see all of the hard work and the different things that we are offering for the participants so that they can be in recovery and get the needs met that they specifically have. This last month, we planted a tree out in the yard, if you're facing our building to the right, in memory of one of our participants who passed away earlier this summer. And it was a participant-led memoriam. We had a service and planted a tree, put a plaque down. It's very nice. If you're ever in the area, we would love for you to come see it. And further, we expect to be having a Veterans Court graduation in the month of August, so we will be sending out an invitation to the commission and look forward to seeing you guys there.
Hey, any questions on the report?
Motion to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve, Commissioner P, and I think we had a second, Commissioner
Second.
Gurley. I'll call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you. All right, probation report. Ms. Phillips.
For the month of June, our expenditures were $113,688.49. The year-to-date expenditures for the office were $1,430,879.86. For the month of June, our total revenue collected by the General Sessions and Circuit Clerk's Office was $8,630.03. That gave us a total revenue amount of $23,673.03 for the month of June. The total expenditures, again, was $113,688.49 for a difference of $90,015.46. Below that, we have the voluntary payment agreements broken down by the month of June. That means that total amount in green was turned over to the clerk's office to be collected. Just in probation fees, that was $17,700. Those that failed to enter a payment agreement for the month of June, that total amounted to $18,641.50. Then also for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020, the amount turned over just in probation fees to the clerk's office was $180,778.25. And I also to the side broke that down by individuals. So that was 768 individuals that entered into a payment agreement for the balance of their probation fees with the clerk's office for the fiscal year. And then below that, those that failed to enter a payment agreement for the clerk's office for the fiscal year, that amount was $201,248.15, and that was 603 individuals. Something new that I did add to this month's report was just to break down some classes that we had for last fiscal year. We have imposed a sanction program with our MRT classes, with the judge's approval, of course. We started the program so that anybody that had met a certain criteria could be eligible for a 12-week program, which is a drug and alcohol class that we offer in our office. And that is if they have tested positive on their first drug screen. So in lieu of a violation of probation to be prepared and submitted to the judge, they can actually agree to do and complete a sanction in lieu of that violation of probation. So in other words, that individual doesn't have to go down to the sheriff's department to turn themselves in or go to court, or in turn have to do jail time if that was imposed. So I did break down those numbers for that sanction, and we're hoping to expand that program, but this was kind of our starter. So for the fiscal year, the total number of individuals that completed the sanction that was imposed were 79. Individuals that did not complete that sanction were 38. We still have 7 from the last fiscal year that are still actively attending classes now. So the total number of people that were sanctioned in lieu of a violation of probation were 124 individuals. So that's a success rate for the fiscal year at 64%, which I feel like is, 1% is better than 0, so that means someone actually addressed whatever underlying issue that they may be struggling with that caused them to test positive on that drug screen. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And then the second thing that I attached was just a little good news with our olive branch. I attached a picture of Shannon from Living Water Church. She heard about our program, and her women's group collected items for our olive branch, toiletries, food, and they came by and dropped off those items. So there are a lot of things that'll benefit the people that are on probation. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys. That's all.
Okay. Any questions on the report? Have a motion to approve. I have the motion by Commissioner Gammon. Have a second? Second, Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, Correctional Work Center. Lieutenant Cope, good evening.
Evening, how are you?
Hey, sir.
We'll start with the minutes of our Work Center board meetings there. And you can see that it's complete if you will give that a look over. Next, I want to just kind of bring attention to a nice article that recently came out about some work that our staff is doing out at the facility with the children in our community of those who are incarcerated. And we were named change agents by the Family Center. Our staff does a real good job with some of the programs, especially geared toward children. Next is our work release program report. Everything is going great in our work release. We still have the same number of participants working, even though our population has gone down as a whole. We still are keeping just as many at work. Our yearly activity report is next, you'll see. Our total population has gone down, obviously due to procedures for making sure that we quarantine everyone that comes into the facility, but due to some of the new CDC guidelines, we'll be able to change some of those policies over the next few days and get more people processed through. The next several pages are going to be our state litter pickup. You'll see that I believe it's March through June are included there. And as you can see with the totals there, we're actually doing more work and covering more miles than we have in previous years. And I believe that we have over half, if not more, completed what our contract already for the year requires. So what we plan on doing is just continuing that work regardless if we're required to or not. I think we're doing a great job out there. I drove from 840 all the way down from Wilson County through Rutherford all the way through Williamson, and I can tell you that our county is the cleanest. So those guys are doing a great job out there, and I'd like to commend them for the work that they're doing. And that is our report.
Okay. Any questions for Superintendent? Do we have a motion for approval of his report?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Phillips moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Rather, call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Juvenile detention report. Ms. Duke.
Good evening. I hope that you'll be able to hear me and understand me. I feel a little uncomfortable in the mask, but I'm going to give it a go. So the first thing that you'll see on our monthly report is that we've wrapped up our fiscal year, obviously, and the Juvenile Detention Center has received a little more than $600,000 for detention beds for this past fiscal year. I'm just going to hit some highlights, and then if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask them. On our STD stats, I'm just going to point out that our lowest positive percentage rate was going to be 4.5, and our highest percentage rate for monthly totals was 22%. And then that averaged out to be 11% over the fiscal year. We did have another young man that got his high school requirements completed while he was
detained at the Juvenile Detention Center. We're going to be having we had to postpone it. We didn't get to have it on the 24th, but we are going to be having a small graduation ceremony for him. And I hope that it made it to the file, but in addition to our report, I also have one budget amendment, but that's all on our report right now.
Okay. So that's your report?
Yes, sir.
Any questions on the report? I believe she has an amendment after this, but I have a motion to approve the report. Commissioner Gammon makes the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Rather, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. I believe you have a budget amendment?
I do. We're asking to move $3,200 from our sergeant line item into our secretary line item. We have recently had a transfer of Rebecca Basquette from our department to another county department, which has caused sort of a domino effect with some in-house promotions. And what we're trying to do with this amendment is we're going to try some lean management approaches, and we're shifting some responsibilities from within the department. So I'm asking to do this to allow one of my admin support 2s to go to admin support 3 because they're going to be picking up some extra responsibilities. And from that sergeant line item. So that's my hope, is to save some money in the long run and switch some responsibilities around, but it would require this admin support 2 to bump up to admin support 3.
Is that $3,200 enough to get you through the rest of the year?
Yes.
Other questions? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
And approve, Commissioner Rather. Second there, Commissioner P. Call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go back up in the agenda to item 4B, to fire and rescue. Evening, Chief.
Evening. For the month of June, we had 545 calls. We had 6 structure fires, 4 vehicle fires. We had 34 accidents with injuries, 30 accidents without injuries. We had a total of 6 extrications, had 259 medical calls. Year-to-date call volume is 3,411, 39 structure fires, 18 vehicle fires, 1,718 medical calls. We had 369 MVAs for the year. 195 of those were accidents with injuries. 174 was accident without injuries. Total county call volume, including the volunteers, is 4,157. Had 101 structure fires so far this year, 51 brush fires, 65 illegal burns, 37 vehicle fires. Had 27 hazmats. We've had 16 water rescues so far this year. 593 motor vehicle accidents, 24 of those were required extrication. And that number seems to be going up for some reason. We had, of course, 190 fire alarms for a total of 4157. The next page is what we turn into the county codes department, the damaged structures that will require a re-permitting. Next page is our fire investigation case log and the determination. And then we're 12 smoke alarms so far this year. It's slow getting started back with the COVID. And that completes my report, and I have a budget amendment.
Any questions on the report?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. In fact, I had 2 seconds over here. Commissioner Gammon and Commissioner Rather. Call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. And I believe you're going to present the agreement for emergency services. Is that correct?
I've got a budget amendment first I was going to do.
Okay, you got an amendment?
Yeah, this is recognized revenue and expenses from the grant awarded by FEMA, Assistance to Firefighters, AFG COVID-19 Supplemental Award. This is a 10% matching grant for total project costs from non-federal funds and unassigned fund balance. The grant allowed for reimbursement of cleaning supplies, N95 respirators, goggles that were previously purchased, as well as new purchases of eye protection goggles and 3M half-face piece reusable respirators and replacement filters. This is funding to support the prevention of and preparation for and response to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. This is a 1-year grant period. Performance begins at July 3rd to July 2nd of 2021.
Okay. Questions, anyone? I think Commissioner P is saying something. Not getting it.
How about now?
Now we got you.
I was just going to make a motion to approve the submission of the grant.
Okay, sir. Have the motion approved. To have a second?
I will second that.
Second. Commissioner Serino. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Now, are you ready?
In reference to the agreement for emergency services, this is just a renewal of the contract we created several years ago. When the county fire department was created, this is a contract between the county and the volunteer services, volunteer fire departments to provide service in their areas. We just cleaning up of the words, instead of the numerical of what we would donate every year, it's just whatever. I think it reads that whatever's approved by the county commission. Also, it just kind of cleans up the insurance issues of them double coverage of property and apparatus. Hopefully y'all have had time to read this. I think Rachel sent this out today, and I'm not going to bore you and read the whole document, but I'll answer any questions you may have.
Been approved by our county attorney's office?
Yes, sir. Extensively. Believe me.
If it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. I move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion to
I'll
approve. Do we have a second? Have a second
I'll
from
second that.
Commissioner Gurley? Call the roll.
Chairman, I had a question.
Okay, Commissioner P.
Larry, you said the only changes were leaving out the amounts that they were being paid and just putting in what's approved by the commission. I hadn't seen this yet. That's why I was asking. Are there no other changes?
I think the majority of it, Commissioner, was just taking out the double coverage where they were required to cover, I think it was to make sure that they were to cover their own buildings and their own the fire apparatus, and the county was going to take them off of the county's fleet, if my understanding is right, there, Mayor.
Mayor?
So how much money is that saving us, the county?
That would be a question for Mr. Ed Elam.
Mr. Elam.
I yield to him.
While he's coming forward, Mr. Chairman, let me go ahead. Chairman P., I think what the attempt was is to make sure that you recall we've been talking about this for some time. We really kind of dusted off the old contract that was signed back years and years ago in the 90s when we first started giving the fire trucks to the volunteer fire departments. So very little was changed from that. The same amount is still in there that is approved by the commission, how much we give to them. Matter of fact, with the increase that we gave them this year, that's still intact. But we had identified when we changed insurance carriers this past year, we had identified that we had 8 vehicles and 5 pieces of equipment, or vice versa.
8 vehicles and 2 pieces of property.
2 pieces of property that were double insured, and we just wanted to make sure that there was no sense in us paying or the volunteer fire department paying for property that we should insure or they should insure. It should only be paid for once. That's what we were trying to eliminate.
So Commissioner P., if I could answer your question, in the way our insurance is set up with APIP and all, is that we're allowed to add $25 million throughout the year without an additional cost to the premium. So when you take something off, you don't have the savings either. But what I will tell you is in next year, if we get all this resolved, and talking to our insurance guy, David Patterson, he says it's about a $2,000 to $2,500 savings on our premiums to take this coverage off. But that will be in next year's and not this year's, because we renewed it back in July 1st.
Okay. What is the liability coverage that we're requiring the departments to have on the buildings and on the vehicles? It used to be $1 million for each one. Is that the same?
It's $5 million, and just to explain the agreement that we have here for just a second. There's a couple of things that was in the old agreement that was not covered, and it was hold harmless, waiver of subrogation. And a lot of this is just the wording. Everything is remaining the same. One of the problems we ran into was that you have county trucks that are being operated by the volunteer fire departments, and they're owned by the county vehicles, and there wasn't a contract that closed that gap, responsibility and stuff like that. It's in the volunteer firefighters insurance. We just didn't have anything to keep somebody from coming back on Rutherford County. So, my part of this was 5 through 8, items 5 through 8. And David Patterson's out of town, but he explained to me that this is all wording. We're not changing the limits or anything like that. And as far as the volunteer fire departments are concerned, it doesn't change their premiums either, because I was very concerned with that, Commissioner P., that we were adding something or taking something away from them, and I just wanted to make sure that in my part of this on the insurance, that we brought something to you. We brought you the double coverage, and you asked for it to come back, so we did. And I wanted to make sure we brought something back this month. And as far as the insurance part, it's already in each other's policies. This just spells it out more so that we get the policy, we see when it ends, we're notified if it's canceled, those type things.
Well, listen, I appreciate the work that you put in on that, and of course, that's exactly what we want to do, is try to save money for both us and the volunteers. Now, I've heard that you have talked to the attorney extensively. Have you talked to the volunteer fire departments extensively? Or have you even asked them about this, or just send it to them to sign?
Basically, I'm going to create a document with each one of them's name on it, and I'm going to email this out to the chiefs and give them probably till September 1st to review it and then vote on it to accept it or decline it. But I mean, basically, I think Ed's done most of the work on this. It pretty much just states that they still turn in their training hours, their maintenance records every year showing that they are maintaining their equipment, which has always been in there. It quotes TCA law and them doing their fire reports. And one of the things that I seen that was new is it follows the training TCA code where they have to have 16 hours training initially to be on the truck, and then they have to have their 64-hour basic firefighter training and live burn before they can actually do structural firefighting. That was added in there.
Yeah. So you answered my question, or Mr. Elam did a minute ago. Basically, we haven't asked volunteers about this, but we're wanting to vote on it tonight to approve it, and then ask their permission after we've already voted on it and approved it ourselves. Is that right?
If I could answer that real quick. I guess
that would be good.
If the way we started is where do what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And we felt like that we needed the blessing from the Public Safety Committee before we took something that they agreed upon that the commission hasn't agreed upon. And that's kind of how we wanted to start, is figure out if the commission didn't like something, wanted to change something, whatever, that's where we started. And before we went to the volunteer firefighters. And I will say, I did have a meeting back when we were talking about the insurance months and months ago, and at one of the chairman of the board hadn't even seen the contract for 2014. So, I think this is something that, to protect the county, but also to protect the volunteer firefighters, is we just put it out there and, take a look at it. I'm not trying to, my part of it, I'm not trying to cause a divide. Between the volunteer firefighters in Rutherford County. I just want to make sure that the insurance, our insurance and their insurance, doesn't cause a divide between us either.
Well, I agree with that completely, and I'm not arguing that point. Here's my point: is we make all these changes, but we don't ask our volunteers, who's given us a lot of free labor and time that would cost us millions and millions of dollars. We don't mind making these policy changes, but we don't bother asking them on the front end. And I'm tired of that. And I'm ready for us to start asking them on the front end. So my short answer for this looks like it's going to be a good thing for the county, and I want to do it. But I want review from the departments before I'm willing to give my approval of this.
Let me say something as chairman, Commissioner P. The first time I ever saw one of these was in one of the volunteer fire departments within my district. And that was just as I come in as a county commissioner back in 2014. And I sat down and we pulled out this contract and went over it. And that's the first one I had ever seen. Very similar to, I guess, what I've got right here in my hand. And we went through that and discussed it. And at that time, I had 2 volunteer departments in my district, and we discussed them and went through there, and I saw these agreements. I understand what you're talking about there is our communication with our volunteer fire departments and where we go from there. But if we don't have an agreement to begin with, to start working with, we have nothing to talk to the volunteer fire departments with. And I think what we're doing tonight, now this is just my opinion, what we're trying to do is get an agreement to go and give to the volunteer fire department, say, okay, this is what we're asking for. What do you think? Is this what can we do this? You know, I think, you know, we look at the number of volunteers we have right now, volunteer fire departments. I don't know how many different ideas we would get. Would we ever get an agreement? All we're starting with is one agreement right now, and that's what we're approving is the one agreement. We'll go and take it to them and see if they're okay with this agreement. And then I guess if all four of them's not for it, then we come back and rework the agreement, I guess, at that time. That's my thoughts. Mayor, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman P., might I suggest that this was a starting point that we talked about, talking with our insurance carrier. And of course, my background being in insurance, I want to make sure that the county was properly covered, especially if the vehicles were titled. When it comes down to title, when it gets into the court, that's what the attorneys are going to look for, is the title. Who does that truck belong to? We wanted to make sure that we were properly covered. Might I suggest that we reach out with our public safety director and our fire chief, get approval here tonight to move this agreement forward, but not delay. Let's delay it until the full commission signs off on it. This would give us an opportunity with both the chief and the public safety director to talk to those four different volunteer departments, see if their board approves it, come back, and then maybe at the September meeting, if that'll give us a month to work on this, to talk to them, and then maybe at the full commission in September, bring it back before the full commission for approval. Should be able to work out those. I don't think there's going to be any differences at all.
Well, my plan was to create these into a PDF with a name on it, send it to the chiefs, ask them to present that to the board, get their thoughts and recommendations, and if they had any feedback, they would certainly give that back to us, and they can either go through me or contact you.
Yeah, that's 6 weeks.
But and that's the reason I said September 1st, because I want to give them plenty of time to look at it and examine it, and if they got any heartburn about it, they got time to express that to the commissioner or to you or whoever.
Mr. Chairman?
Is that Joe?
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Joe Gurley?
Yes, I have one of the larger volunteer fire departments in my district. I've been involved firefighting in Rutherford County since before most of the volunteer fire departments that exist were in existence, or at least go back into the mid-70s. But as a commissioner, I think my responsibility is to look out for the county. I think we have to have a document that protects the county and defines what the county is liable for and the county is not liable for. And the worst thing you can have going into court is where no one's responsible for anything or no one knows who's responsible for it. If the requirements are laid out in a document, then the volunteer fire departments can take a look at that document. I think with 4 volunteer fire departments, you're going to have, and 4 boards, which is probably at least 20 different individuals, you're going to have differing opinions. Some are going to see it as good, some are going to see it, well, maybe, and maybe not. But really and truly, in looking at the document earlier today, there's not a lot changed. And so we've got to have something that cuts the mustard as far as legal goes, and then work with our volunteer fire departments. I don't want to put any more burden on the Almaville that's in my district here. Just talking to the chief the other day, and they're doing a lot of good things. They're spending a lot of time, a lot of training, but at the same time, I want the county protected. I know what can happen. So I think we need to go ahead and approve the document as far as this is what we as a commission or as a committee see, and then send it on to the volunteer fire departments. And then if there are particular issues, then work that out with each individual department as long as it doesn't hinder us as far as liability and so on.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other discussion or a motion or what we need to do here? I think we already have a motion, don't we?
You do.
We have a motion and a second.
I will
Mr. Chairman.
include Commissioner Gurley's comments about going through this committee, then the volunteer fire departments to work out the issue before we take to the full county commission. I'll include that in my motion.
Okay. You want to add that as an amendment, or?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. And then you withdraw your second? So you're making that as a new motion?
I'd like Commissioner Gurley to make that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Gurley? Commissioner Gurley, it's been requested you make that as a motion.
Okay, I'll make it as a motion that we approve this agreement, send it to the volunteer fire departments, and have discussions with them, and bring it back to the full commission at a later date.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Have the second. Other discussion?
Whenever I send this out, I will send it to the chiefs and ask them to present it to their boards. And I also ask that if they got any concerns or issues to reply back that with a written email. That way I can bring it back before the mayor and everybody can kind of see what their comments are.
Okay. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay.
One last statement. We, in anticipation of the extrication equipment that the volunteers will be getting, we already started doing extrication classes. We had a good class at Kittredge all day one Saturday, and we're working with the other departments to start that process, get them trained up and work with them. Everybody really enjoyed it. Everybody worked well together. So look forward to this really being a good thing.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Good deal. Do we have a report on the radio system? Peter?
Chairman, Commission members, quick update. User training continues like it has been the past several months throughout the county. The fire department's begun their deployment already, and Scotty from EMS is working on getting EMS finished up next week, so we'll be ready to deploy the EMS radios. The train-the-trainer class, which was held for EMS dispatch and SO dispatch, we wrapped that up this past month. And they're wrapping up the bus installs for the start of school. Plan to have that done by Friday. That tower remediation we voted on a couple months ago, that's been completed. They've begun to hang all the new infrastructure on it, as well as the new microwave loop throughout the county. That's begun. So that's where we are right now.
Questions? Any on the radio system? If not, I will ask for approval on this report for the radio system this time. Mr. Gammon, have a second? Second, Commissioner Rather. Call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. The reason we have bounced around a little bit tonight and what we're trying to do here, on our Public Safety Director report, as chairman, we've had a lot of discussion over the past, excuse me, but I've got to come here because I can't see everything I've got here. But over the last several weeks, there's been a lot of discussion concerning our ambulance service. And there's been a lot of discussion as far as what the city of Murfreesboro is talking about going into their own ambulance service themselves and what's going there. The thing is, as your chairman right here, I've been discussing this quite a bit with our ambulance director and our public safety director, and we've been getting a lot of different information and things of that type. And what I wanted to do tonight, I wanted then our ambulance director and our public safety director to include within their reports this evening to you as the Public Safety Committee information that they have concerning the effects that if this does happen, what it will do to our ambulance service here in Rutherford County. The effects they would have here as far as the budget is concerned, the effects they would have here on the citizens of Rutherford County, which is number one for us, and just what the results could be in this sort of thing. So I asked them to put together a special report on this so that we could give you this information. The thing I have as a concern as a commissioner, I don't want any of you to be coming up and say, backsided on this, say, I didn't know that. I don't have this information. I didn't know what was going on. And the reports they're giving is actually the request of the chairman. It's not they're coming forward and doing this. It's not the mayors or whatever. In fact, I called and asked the mayor if he'd be okay with them doing this. But it's coming from your chairman, making sure that you as commissioners have the information you need. I think we as commissioners need to be as transparent as we can on everything we do within the county government. And this right here gives you ideas. This will also give individuals within the community what this is all about as far as it affects people of Rutherford County. So I'm going to ask them to come forward this evening to give their regular reports and then also to fill you in on the effects of a private ambulance service within the city of Murfreesboro. So Chris, I'll ask you and Carl to come forward at this time, as well as any other reports you may have that you want to handle this right here.
Chairman, does it be okay if I go ahead and give them?
Yes, sir.
Report.
I'll give you the floor to do as you see necessary.
As you can see, emergency management continues to focus on COVID-19 and its response. That deals with resource management as well as grants for funding for this pandemic. Along with that, we hold a responsibility in our office as well, which we respond to several, including a bomb threat and also several fuel spills and natural gas leaks. As far as coordination and planning, again, we're focusing on the reimbursement of a public assistance grant, EMPG, mitigation grants, several other grants that are out there, and then working in coordination with the ambulance service, county fire, and other response partners. Along with that, you received Peter's report for the radio system, and we have many lanes that we are trying to follow as well. But one of our biggest things is focus on COVID-19, and I think sometimes that kind of gets pushed behind the scenes where we're truly focused on that and making sure that our public has the appropriate resources to fight this pandemic. I'll entertain any questions that you may have. I have a budget amendment as well.
Okay. You have a budget amendment? Okay. I have a second to approve the report.
Second.
Commissioner Serino, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Go ahead with your.
This request is to provide funds for the EMA's budget to support the COVID-19 response. Because of the continuation of the pandemic in our county and state, it appears that specific funds is needed to assist the department in their response. Instead of placing the funds in various budget budgets, we hope to track all expenses through this line. The expenditures in this line will be submitted to the Public Assistance Grant for reimbursement, and EMA is filing these claims and will assist the departments in determining if the request purchase would qualify.
Director?
Yes, sir.
Is this similar to the 708 line item that you have in the budget for communications, et cetera, now, where you have everything kind of lumped together there?
No, sir. This is something that last year, approximately March, we moved some funds to support the COVID-19 response. So this would be moved into the 599, so we can track charges for COVID-19 specific. A lot of departments will, if they will request the COVID-19 response equipment or sanitizing, whatever it may be that be related to COVID-19. If we do not have it there that is supplied by the state, then we will go ahead and turn around and purchase that through our emergency management agency and then issue it out to the department in need.
Okay, thank you very much. So you're just kind of getting one line item to take care of everything?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what we're doing.
Other questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I've got a question related to the COVID situation, but we can wait till after this vote.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made for Commissioner Rather. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay, Commissioner P.
Chris, last week or a couple of weeks ago, our school board made the decision to take our students back to regular classrooms in this county. And at that time, and I'm not sure the correct terminology for the amount of people, percentage, the rate was around 5 or 0.5, and it's risen since then. Can you explain, where we're at as far as, how we're increasing or are we decreasing? Would you enlighten me on that, please?
Yes, sir. So we've been monitoring the situation. Actually, for the amount of tested versus positive, we're at 11.8%, which has increased over the last few weeks. Originally, it was around 11.2% on positives that were tested. What we do is we evaluate not only those numbers, but what we're really monitoring are the hospitals and their bed availability, their ICU bed availability, and we also measure the response of public safety. Are we prepared for that? And at this point, is stable, and it has been throughout. We have great public safety. Our hospitals are working in conjunction with emergency management as far as allowing us to know how many beds are available on certain days. And we have to remember that hospitals are kind of like hotels. It fluctuates. We continue to see elective surgeries occur. So our hospitals at this point are stable. However, we look at how it affects the population. We recently put a mask mandate into effect. I went to Walmart and Lowe's this weekend, and it seems like everybody's heeding that precaution. Everybody's doing what they need to do as far as trying to prevent the virus. However, I did do some numbers the other day, and Nashville, they mandated masks on July the 30th. July the 3rd. 2 weeks after, we didn't see any decrease. Other surrounding counties, such as Williamson, and also, I believe Sumner was the other county, also mandated masks on July the 10th. We still see an increase there as well. So We're doing, as far as placing mandates, sending out PSAs, and those kind of things, helping us to reduce the spread of this virus. But we continue to monitor these beds and also our public safety capability. We're much better off than where we were when we started because we were low in PPE. It scared me, just to be honest with you. It terrified us. We were able to get a handle on that very, very quickly, and we continue that process today. Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, it does. The main thing is I want to make sure that people know that we're monitoring this, and two, I want to see the results of what we're trying. For instance, we've made a mandatory mask for the general public in our county, and I want to see if that makes a difference. And we start to see the number of cases trend down. I know you just mentioned Williamson and Davidson, and theirs, and the way I took it, we hadn't really seen a decrease there yet. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, but we also have to remember that the results that we're getting from positives are about a week old. So we're behind the ball game and trying to tally up something that is a week old.
I understand.
And where we have to monitor real close is how is it affecting public safety and our hospitals today. So that's where we are. So tests come back. It could be as long as 13 days, I believe I heard someone say.
Well, my main concern right now is impending schools opening, which is next week. I think the board is meeting again, maybe even tonight. I'm not sure what night, but they'll be meeting again. And, I'm concerned with our rates increasing, with these schools opening, how that's going to affect these children. And two, I want to make sure that our parents and our teachers are having a voice in the schools reopening. And I know that the school board and the superintendent's been working on that, but I'm assuming that they're working with you, and I want confirmation that they are contacting you.
We have spoken, but what we do is we receive orders through the state, what they have requested. I do know that, and don't quote me on this, but for every student, they've ordered a thermometer. So you can imagine the number of thermometers that the state is providing. And also for every student, I believe that's 4 masks as well. I've seen that come through. They're making preparations. The school teachers are working diligently. The administrators are placing in extensive plans as far as tracing to what would they do if a child showed up with a fever. So there are things that are in order and preventive measures and how they are going to adjust their school year. I can't speak for those people, but I do know that they are working diligently, and that goes along with the city schools as well. I'm kind of privileged to, because my wife's a school teacher, and they're working diligently to put these things and make these kids safe.
Well, like I said, that's my main concern, making sure that it's going to be safe for our children to go back to school. And I do want you to keep us updated on anything you see there. Now, the thing that I'm concerned with, I've seen some of the policies that the school board is put out there, but I haven't seen the contingency plan if our number of COVID cases starts increasing rapidly after we open schools. What are we going to do as far as funding there? Are you aware of what's going on in that case?
No, sir. That would be at the school board's decision as far as those contingency plans.
Well, that's why I was asking you too, if they've been in direct contact with you. And if not, I would suggest you contact them and make sure that they do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Is that Commissioner Gurley?
Yes, I'd like to comment on Commissioner P's question or statement or whatever. We kind of got a mini think the schools have never really, for the last several weeks, schools, in essence, in some ways, have been in. The football teams, both middle school, high school, they're out there practicing. They're huddled up as close as they can be. So we'll kind of see, and I've asked our health department director to provide at tomorrow night's meeting some information on number of cases up through the age range of school children, as far as how many we've had in Rutherford County. And because at the park that's recently opened above my house, parents nor children have been experiencing practicing social distances. The town of Smyrna has some nice signs up, but no one's paying any attention to them. And so I think I was out a bit this weekend also, and I'll have to differ from Chris's estimation about, I would say if we've got 75 or 80% compliance, I think we're doing good. A lot of people are trying, but it's by no means, I've seen information, it needs to be 90, 95%. And so it's nowhere near that. A few weeks ago, I was in New York for 8 days, New York City, and compliance up there, I would say, is 99 point something percent. You don't go in a restaurant, well, you don't go in a restaurant, period, but you don't order food, you don't get on a subway, you don't get on a bus, you don't get on a ferry without a mask on, without hand sanitizer, et cetera. And I think we need to emphasize all those other things too, besides masks, all the precautions of good hygiene. So Commissioner P, listen in on Health and Ed tomorrow night, and there'll be some more questions and information there.
Okay. Director? So you got your report? Or? Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would you like for Denise and Scotty to go ahead and do theirs before I get in my report, and then we'll
Yes.
let Scotty come up first.
Basically what this is, last year when we purchased our ambulances, the company that we bought from, they had in their bid last year that they would honor their bid for this year, for 2 years in a row, except for a price increase of the chassis. So they sent me the new prices, so actually the chassis went up $1,064. So I have the money to purchase 3 trucks, even with this increase. But that's all the chassis. Actually, the chassis went up $1,464, but we get a fin rebate, which was $400. So that brought it down to $1,064. So with that, if we purchase that, that would make the price of the ambulance $123,201. Now, as y'all know, with the COVID, we bought some UV lights. There's now a company they're making a UV light that's actually installed in the ambulance. So once they get off a call and get back to the station, they can set that light on a timer, and they can do it at their station. They don't have to set another light in there. So they've added a price of $2,650 for this light to be added to the ambulance. With this additional cost, I do have the money to do that, and I'm asking for permission to go forward with that, which would make the total of $125,851 for the ambulances. And I would like to suggest us go with that. That way we have the UV light installed and we can get it deconned much quicker on the ambulances. And also I'll give you one on our cot system, the striker for the cots and the power loads. Striker, they're also honoring their bid price from last year. Now this one has 4 cots and stretcher mounts because we are doing one more convalescent van, but it has to be bid out. But this price here that they send is the same price we paid last year for 4 of them. And so they're honoring that price also, and I'd like to get y'all's recommendation on that. Yeah, I do have the money to cover this.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner P.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve that transfer and allow him to go ahead and purchase that. I'd hate to think that we've got an ambulance out of service waiting to be decontaminated and somebody's out there having a heart attack. So I think $1,000 for that and the decontamination unit and the chassis frame, that's well worth it to me. So I make the motion to approve that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have the motion to approve. Do we have a second? Have a second, Commissioner Gammon. Any other discussion?
One quick question, Mr. Chairman, to follow up on that. Would us purchasing an additional piece of equipment at this time be appropriate before we have the discussion afterward? Should we wait?
You know, I think we go ahead with this myself, Commissioner Phillips, what you're going to hear, because what we're discussing now, we are needing these now, and am I not right?
Yes, a lot of high mileage.
We got high mileage vehicles, and this is taking us through where we are, because what the city of Murfreesboro will do will not happen immediately. This is what, for next year? Is that next spring? Is that what we're talking about?
Even if, Commissioner Phillips, if the decision was made today, they still have to give notice of 180 days, so that'd put us way into the spring. So I agree.
Mayor's office is in support of this purchase.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good question, though. Good question. All right, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay.
Good evening. Director Hudgens asked that I just give a quick status update with death investigation services and medical examiner services that we provide. Wanted to inform you all that we have initiated the educational program for our death investigators as we move forward with bringing them to national standards. So that was initiated on July 16th. We had 2 classes held that week. We also have a guest speaker speaking to us tomorrow, Dr. Amy Hawes, the Deputy Chief State Medical Examiner, and then we'll have another class this week. So we are fully fledged into our in-house educational program. An update on some trends that I have seen that I wanted to inform about. I had been looking at the examination results on a daily basis from the Regional Forensic Center. Just something I wanted to point out as an observance. Since the beginning of this year, I have noted that our cases are not examined within 24 hours. Typically or traditionally, our cases were examined next day. So if the decedent arrived today at the Regional Forensic Center, traditionally our examinations had been performed the next morning. I had noted a trend that I just think it's worth pointing out for future planning. Many of our cases are not being seen. Just to give some examples, in January, 50% of our cases that were sent for examination were not seen next day, some of them 2, 3, some even 4 days after arrival. I'm sure all of us can appreciate the impact that could have not only on law enforcement receiving those results, but also for the families of the decedents with their final disposition planning. Some of the cases traditionally, funeral homes prefer to receive the decedent within 3 days of death, so that embalming procedures are able to be performed, and the families are able to have a viewing and have the funeral service that they desire. So, just wanted to point out that I am seeing that trend, and that this is happening every month. In fact, this month, over 40% were several days after arrival at the Regional Forensic Center. Last month in June, over 50% of our cases were not seen next day. We have applied for the Coverdell Grant. I've mentioned that on previous meetings. So that application was put in. We are obviously hopeful that we will be successful in being awarded that grant. We will probably know within about 6 to 8 weeks. The initiation date for the successful applicant or applicants will start October 1st. So we are hopeful that we will learn that sometime in September. The thing I would like to make sure that we keep in everybody's mind, though, is if we aren't successful in getting that competitive grant, the issues and the needs will not be going away. We still need an exam room. We still, under state guidelines, should have an exam room for our medical examiner and our death investigators to do specimen procurement as well as more thorough examinations than we're able to do on scene. So these needs don't go away. So I believe that the mayor is looking into additional resources or grant funding to be able to afford to move forward with doing that if we're not successful. Or even if we are, there's obviously other pieces of equipment, some expansion ideas that really are needed in our community. One big one being that we do not truly have a county morgue. So funding is hoped to be received from that as well. Any questions on anything I've mentioned?
Very good. Good news and good report.
Proud of both of them. They give a fine report. Okay.
Is this your report?
Yes, sir. This is my report.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the report?
No, sir.
No, you still got yours?
I still got mine. Yes, sir. Okay, this is for the month of June. Number of 911 calls we had were 2,915. Number of hospital transfers were 46. Total number of calls were 2,997. I was able to keep the response time at 6.5. The number of DOAs for the month were 71. State payments we received on those was $1,775. This is starting to concern me here. The number of autopsies we sent for the month of June was 36. Now, I want you to keep in mind, we usually average anywhere from around 20 to 22, 24. I've never in my career ever sent 36 in 1 month. And I'm going to go over some other things on those here at the end of my report. We paid $67,500 for those autopsies, and year to date, we've done 268 autopsies with a total of $502,500 is what we paid for autopsies for 2019, 2020. On the billing side, we billed $1,446,498. Total collections were $627,888. Year to date is $8,999,000. $8,341. Projected year collections is $99,341. The percent collection rate is 63%. Insurance write-offs were $446,473, and other write-offs were $614,520. And flipping over to the non-emergency side, total number of calls were 383. Number of calls declined were 67. Total bill was $250,032. Total collected was $81,720. Year to date is $955,334. Projected year collections were, also I want to make a note real quick. Those collections, that's a record for the non-emergency side. Projected year collection is $955,334. Collection rate is at 86%. Insurance write-offs were $155,533, and other write-offs were $23,205. With the non-emergency side and the 911 side, the ambulance service set a record in collections with a total of $9.2 million. And we're very proud. I'm very proud of the girls in the office. They've made the changes to do this, and the paramedics are getting the information that's needed. And as you can see, it's paying off. I've received a real nice thank you letter from a patient that I once treated. And unfortunately, every now and then, she still needs our service, and she was bragging on our paramedics, and it's a real nice letter, and I hope you get the time to read that. And I responded back to her, and I'm going to be meeting her pretty soon and just say hi again. Another thank you letter to two of our paramedics, David Mutter and Travis Rohrenbaugh. They received a real nice letter, thank you letter. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 updates from patients that we flew out on Vanderbilt Life Flight. And also, this is not in the report, but it's just something I wanted to add. Every EMS station in the county now is displaying the American flag, and they're properly lit at night. And also, the American flag is displayed on every frontline unit we have. It's placed in the top right back corner of every frontline unit we have, and believe it or not, we have to go through a process to get this approved through the state. We have a new EMS state consultant. We got that at my request, and at the time I met him, after my request for a new consultant, I just told him I'd like to have flags on our ambulances, and within 24 hours that got approved. So I just wanted to publicly thank Brandon Board with the state for helping me speed this up. Also, Dana, Director at the Health Department, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic was in desperate need of some help with testing. And so I offered her our paramedics and EMTs. And Dr. McDonald, who y'all are all familiar with, she trained our paramedics and worked personally beside them. And now they are helping at the health department. And Dr. McDonald is responsible for developing the protocols that are used across the state now in order for paramedics to and EMTs to help with the testing. So we're real proud of that. Then the state decided they would send the National Guard and others to assist the health department. So for a couple of weeks, the health department didn't need us. And for whatever reason, that didn't work out very well. And it just goes to show sometimes you don't need to fix what's not broke. About 2 weeks later, Dana is calling me back, wanting to know if we could come back. And we rolled in with the same wheelbarrow that we was pushing before, and it's working perfectly again. And so as far as I know, and from what Dana's telling me, everything at the health department as far as testing is running perfectly. We either have 2 to 4 paramedics helping them every day. Starting next month, I've instructed my staff to assign a medic to every committee meeting here at the historic courthouse. So as tonight, you can see that Keith is here. And we're prepared for any medical emergency that may occur during any committee meeting. It's not just public safety, it's every committee meeting there is. So in the future, starting next month, you're going to see that. They'll continue doing temps like they are, but they're going to stay with you during your meeting too. So just want to make everybody aware of that. I'm very proud of this right here. Rutherford County EMS, we've partnered up with HCA TriStar Stonecrest. Our medics will be doing rotations in the OR, and we will be doing intubation skills. Now, keep in mind, we already do this in the field, but it's not a skill that every paramedic does every single day in the field. So we're actually going to be sending paramedics up into the OR and doing rotations. And I just really want to thank Dr. Head, who will be, he's the lead anesthesiologist at Stonecrest, from what I understand, and he's going to take our paramedics under his wing, and we're going to have a very good class, so to speak. Now, in paramedic school, they do this, but it's just a rotation. This is going to be available to us all the time. And so, I'd like to, extend a thank you out to Luke Caputo and Joe Gleason, the CEOs at Stonecrest, and also Kevin Tennant, who is a HCA representative for EMS, and this wouldn't be possible without them. And this opportunity brings more skilled expertise to our medics, and it greatly enhances our relationship with the hospital and trust. And this is a very big deal for us. It's a very big deal for our paramedics, and as far as I know, there is no other service that's done this. And so we're very proud to have that opportunity. I've also instructed members on my staff to move aggressively on what's called community paramedicine. Now, when I first became the director, we talked about it for the first 10 months, and that's exactly what it was talk. And sometimes talking, you're not moving fast enough. So I've told them that I wanted to be a lot closer to this thing being completed within a year. And we've been working with Stonecrest on that, with Joe Gleason at Stonecrest, and it is moving in the direction I'm pleased in. And I foresee this taking off a lot sooner than I was anticipating. And basically what it is, if a patient's released from the hospital, the goal is to try to keep them from being readmitted, especially within 30 days. Not only is it going to be beneficial for the hospital, it's going to be beneficial for the insurance companies, and it's especially going to be financially beneficial for the patient. And it's a good program, and I think it's a win-win for everybody. And we're going to get that going. I don't care if we just have one paramedic left in the county, and if I have to do it myself, we're going to do it. So we've partnered up with Stonecrest, and like I said, they are moving in the direction that I'm pleased with, and I'm going to say within a year, we're going to be a whole lot closer than we were. And that's my report, sir, before we get into the city issue.
Okay, any questions for the director? Do I have a motion to approve the report?
Move to approve.
Motion approved, Commissioner Rather. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Yes. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Chairman Reed?
Yes. Motion approved.
Mr. Chairman, as you said earlier, with the city considering going into the ambulance business, Director Clark and I have been working day and night on this, and I've spoke with the mayor and chairman of this committee and some of the other commissioners. I think it's time for everybody to be aware, because this is going to affect every commissioner's district some way or another if this happens. And I've asked Chris if he would come up and speak a lot on my behalf too. He's a little bit more smoother talker than I am. And but I am going to remain up here if there's any questions for me also. But Chris and I have put together some information that I think you will all be interested in.
Thank you. So as you know, Rutherford County EMS has been here since 1972. We've provided not only our response, we've decreased our response times under Director Hudgens' watch. We provide outreach to the community, such as CPR training, public education, and a variety of things. We host approximately 18 online units that are there 24/7, and also we have 13 EMS stations. We actually provide tactical medics in the field for our law enforcement during high-risk situations. We provide a medical examiner's office. By law, that's we're mandated to provide, as you saw Director Hudgens talking about earlier. So one of the things that we have found out that Murfreesboro has requested an RFP, and they have been submitted. At this time, they're under review. And also, while that is going on, I wanted to measure the impact that it would have on the residents of Rutherford County. We could see a substantial impact, and it could reach as far as Laverne and our surrounding areas. And how does that impact us? We could see a possible 53 employees that we would have to lay off. And that would include 10 online ambulances. Well, how does that affect you? If we eliminate those, then it could see outreaching effects as far as response times to the areas that you represent. We estimated that it could cost up to 42% of our budget. We talk about how it would impact Smyrna and Laverne. We could lose an ambulance in Stonecrest area. With that being said, that affects Laverne as well, because that ambulance also covers a portion of the industrial park and also just to the west of Interstate, Woodland Hills subdivision, areas like that. But we estimate that we would see a 42% impact. Keep in mind that this is the worst case possibility. We are speaking with the attorneys on as far as funding and things like that. Let's talk about private ambulance service and how it would impact not only our community, but it also impact hospitals as well. Many times a private ambulance service that provides 911 service comes from hospital-based services. It could affect our hospitals. They could see a decrease in certain hospitals' revenues, things like that. Many times a private service would come in here with $0 committal. But after a while, if you underestimate the profit, you would see a rise in the next couple of years. Keep in mind that in the private business, it's for profit. We can see an impact for our local private services that are rendering service currently, such as regional and other ambulance services here in Murfreesboro. It will absolutely devastate that area, that business. So there's a lot to digest. Like I said, I'll continue to work with the attorneys as far as funding and other matters. We could see that how does it impact our patients? A lot of times for our low income and our elderly, which are on fixed incomes, if they utilize that private service, a lot of times they are very aggressive in getting their monies in what the services that they rendered. So we have to think about all of that is involved. We could see another issue as far as if our ambulance stations, such on the outlying of Murfreesboro, let's just give you an example. We have an MTSU EMS station on the backside of MTSU on Rutherford Boulevard. If there was a motor vehicle accident on the backside of MTSU, and you could throw a rock and hit our station, we would not be called. So that sets up a whole different logistical issue there. We talk about our employees. We have people here that have been here for 30 years. Where would they go? Their retirement. Some of these people that are currently working for the ambulance service have been here 30 or greater years. However, they just can't afford to retire at this point in their life. So we look at our employees as well. They've provided a tremendous service over the years, in that we want to make sure that they could fend for themselves, continue that work, continue that loyalty. And then also how we treat our patients. I know for a fact that we try to provide the best service, but we also provide a lot more, and that's called tender loving care. So wanted to keep you abreast of the possibilities. We're still looking into this matter. I believe that HCA is actually here, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? to, if you have any questions for the hospital.
I'm not sure that a question is appropriate at this time. Is it, or are you finished with your, can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Number one, there's probably going to be some folks out there that are listening to this meeting and wondering what's going on. So if we could start from the beginning and tell us what's going on, number one, and why it's going on. And it doesn't have to be you, Chris. It can be the mayor that can address those questions. And why would the city of Murfreesboro even be entertaining the possibility of doing that? So if we could try to understand from the city of Murfreesboro's point of view why they're approaching this differently than we're looking at it.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, let me just, if you'll recall, back when I was sworn in, probably September of 18, when I took office, the movement, and actually based on talk from the city mayor, was that there was movement before I got here under my predecessor, Mayor Burgess, to move our two dispatches together to co-locate. Okay, that never did happen. And then when I came in September of 18, I was convinced that we probably need to be open-minded and move in that direction. It just made sense to me to co-locate. To where our dispatch, everybody was in the same room, doing the same thing. But then as time progressed and we went through several meetings, former director, Chris's predecessor, went through probably a year of dynamics of trying to get the two dispatches together. We were going to be locating over at the Murfreesboro main precinct with their dispatch, close ours down at South Gate and come together. And as it got closer and closer, there were questions that I started asking that I couldn't get answered. Probably about 8 to 12 bullet points, I think it was what I had on the sheet, and couldn't get those answers. Questions like, okay, how much are your employees making versus our employees? Which I knew that once they became co-locating together, that they're going to talk, during lunch or whatever, and if they were making more, got a pay raise and ours didn't, or they were making more than what ours were, that was going to create some issues, and I wanted to make sure that we leveled that playing field before we even entered into that co-location together. I had questions about, okay, they were asking us to, in times of I guess what was the term, Steve? They were looking at, yeah, if they needed more help during, let's say, I was thinking they needed additional help, and we'd have to cross-train over for police dispatch as well as our medical dispatch, and they couldn't define for me what was their time of need. I was thinking more of a Good Friday tornado or a flood or something that we could help assist if they were shorthanded. But then somebody said, well, it could be at 5 o'clock every day. So those are the type of questions that I couldn't get answered. Another question was, what happens if our dispatchers screw up and their fire department and rescue doesn't get to the address, we send them to the wrong address, where's that liability stand? That was a legal question that legal needed to answer, and those are some of the bullet points that couldn't get answered. So kind of backed off from that, and because we seemed to run into a stalemate. It wasn't long after that that they felt like that they needed to make the move to start their own fire department and ambulance department combined. They wanted EMTs on, I believe, every fire truck answering the call, as opposed to, or not EMTs, but paramedics. They wanted paramedics who were a little higher trained than the EMTs. So they went about, just communication kind of stopped, and they said they were going to put it out in an RFP, which they did back in July, first part of this month. The last part of June, first part of, and the RFPs should be coming in, and I think they're going to wait till after the election and take a vote. They feel like that they need to be answered those calls. They disagreed once we couldn't come together on co-location, then it got into protocol. You know, that their philosophy of how protocol should be, which was confusing to me because we both have Dr. Russ Galloway, who is the director for, our medical director for both agencies. So how could our protocol be different than their protocol? Those are some of the questions that we still face. But been informed that by the mayor that it's going to be free to the citizens of Murfreesboro, and they're going to get better quality of care.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Corley.
Yes, I'd like to follow up on what the mayor said. You know, and a year and a half or better ago, the big complaint I heard and so on was the lack of coordination and so on. Actions were taken on the county's part to correct a lot of those complaints that were being made at that time, 18 months or so ago. I think the county's bent over backwards in trying to address some of the issues that Murfreesboro Fire and the city of Murfreesboro have raised. Having been in pretty much all of the public safety components business for a good portion of my life, I've got a pretty good understanding of it, and I don't think too much of their points are valid anymore. As far as first I'd heard about the free part, but if we increase taxes 36% on our citizens, the citizens of Rutherford County, we could probably make it free too. But I don't think we're planning to do that. And I think the citizens of Murfreesboro are going to find they're paying through the pockets in taxes in order to be able to, nothing comes free is what I'm trying to say. However, that being said, I would like for Director Clark, I don't want to hear about stations closing in the north end of the county. We're, in my opinion, undermanned. For the last 5 years, I've asked prior Director Nunley to come up with a 5-year plan to increase the number of stations, the number of ambulances in the north end of the county. And I think it's true probably from some of the other areas of the county. I don't want to hear about shutting down the MTSU station. I don't want to hear about shutting down the Stonecrest station. What I do want to hear in the coming weeks and months is a plan and how much it's going to cost to keep those stations manned to the level we are now and improve on the going forward. So that's what I want to hear. I want to hear a budget figure a few months from now on if this happens, what it's going to take in terms of resources, in terms of fiscal resources, to keep things, a response time outside the city limits of Murfreesboro where it is right now. Thank you.
Chris?
As of last Wednesday, I requested a meeting with Murfreesboro Fire, Rutherford County EMS, and our current medical director, Russ Galloway. One of the things that we did discuss is how can we improve relationships and partnerships after this is all during this process. And reached out to them, and we had a very productive meeting. We were able to speak concerning some tactical differences, philosophies, and it was very productive. So it's my hopes that we will continue those talks to be be productive and hopefully eliminate the thoughts of trying to have a private ambulance service in the city of Murfreesboro.
Commissioner?
Chairman, I was going to tell you, I'm absolutely against the private ambulance service 100%. I think we've got a fine group of men and women. But also I want to say no matter what the city does, that's their choice. Whether I agree or disagree, but I'm a county resident, not a city. And so whatever they do, this has been, I've been with the county 38 years, without getting into all that again. But I've been in a command level for over 20. And this has been talked about for over 20 years. Actually has. And some of it came out of animosity toward the previous director. Nothing against him, good friend of mine, and his assistants. Because when they started doing the paramedic thing, and I'm sure you guys can go further than I can with it, I wasn't on the inside, but I know that there was an issue where they wanted to treat patients on a certain level and they wasn't allowed to. And I think that's one of the issues that came up before. The kicker I see here is it's not a matter of closing ambulance stations, it's a matter of building more. My attitude is that we don't have to lose anybody. You know, because if I remember correctly, every dollar comes in from the ambulance fees goes into the tax rate. So we kind of set ourselves up a little bit. I ain't criticizing in no way. I'm just saying we want to have the cheapest dollar we can every budget year, but we kind of set ourselves up a little bit, not setting $2 or $3 million aside here and there and this and that. I'm not a financial man. Other people are. You know, Commissioner Phillips is 10 times smarter than I am. And but here's the thing. We talk about 6-7 minute response. I want to see it get down to 3. And how can you do that? It just means you're going to have to reach out a little further. If the citizens have a heart attack, and it's the same thing to the city. If you ask the citizens in the city, would you pay 5 more cents to have an ambulance service? And nothing is free, because what they're going to do, I guarantee you, is they're still going to charge the insurance fees. They just may not charge if you can't afford it, and we don't necessarily do that ourselves, I don't think. If somebody's indigent, we don't necessarily charge them that I know of, if I remember correctly. And I'm not speaking for you guys, but I'm saying I don't want to see anything happen in our ambulance service. We got a good team. I don't want to lose any of them to the city or anything. I want to see us reach out in the county further, because I know you guys are constantly having to overlap ambulances, and you shouldn't be doing that right now, but you can't help it. That's a budget thing. But it shouldn't be happening. And so the same question that come up is why they're doing this? Well, why they have a police department? Why they have this? Why they have that? Because if it didn't have a police department, guess who'd be trolling the city? Sheriff's office. And a lot of jurisdictions do that. They contract out. But, and I'll be quiet here in a second. I don't try to talk too much, but we don't need to go back to a private ambulance service. Trust me, because exactly what the director said, they'll come in here and offer a sweet deal, and the more they got it, it's for profit. It's like having a private prison here. The liability is going to be on the county still to provide the service, and they're going to do it as cheap as they can. That's why we have Dr. Rudd working at the jail. You could go there and find a little cheaper plan. Trust me, I know. I've seen the bids, but you're not going to get the service. And that's the thing we need to look for as a service. That's the same thing that I'm going to call Cuz. You know, I wasn't always agreeable on some things, but we've known each other a long time, and he knows he can look at me and say what he wants to say. You know, this private non-emergency thing, I wasn't necessarily sold on it, but that's what I said. I said, just Say it's a service. We're providing our citizens a service. I don't have a problem with that. It's bringing some money in, but you're still providing something for citizens. Period. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. You know, I think you brought up the thing right there is what we're doing. This is all about service and being the servants that were out there. And I think when you looked at the report that we had this evening that come from our director right there, you saw how much was written off. And that was written off not necessarily due to the fact that we wanted to write it off. It was due to the fact there are people out here who didn't have the money to pay it. But they still needed an ambulance to get to where they needed to go. Now, when you deal with a private for profit out here, it won't be the same way. So we're still providing that service for the people of this county right here who need to get to the hospital and they need an ambulance. And we're doing that as a service, not as a means of making profit or making that return right there. And I think to go back to Commissioner Gurley there, he was talking about the fact of not doing away with stations or whatever. These two individuals have been working night and day. I've got to tell you, they've been working night and day on this. And as he said right there, they worked on some different plans. What if, what happens or whatever. There are things we don't know. We don't know about the tax funds, how they will work out. You know, there are things within law, how much of the tax funds can be used, can't be used. We still have things that we have attorneys looking at as far as the amount of tax funds that can be used for whatever and going that way. There are some areas we look at and say, yeah, it'll be okay. But there are other areas we said, well, it's not going to be okay. And that's why we wanted to present that tonight, that there could be problems. And that's what we're looking at there. Nobody wants to give this up. And I'll be honest with you, after I've heard some of these things, you know, you get in these positions here where we are as commissioners, sometimes you know too much. And it goes to bed with you at night, and you lay there thinking about these things, that, you know, you're here in this position to take care of the people of Rutherford County, and you have to lay there and think about, you know, what could happen and where we are right here and what we're trying to do. We have with us tonight, I know individuals here that are from Stonecrest and Smyrna who are concerned about this too. And I believe Mr. Glearson, right back here, and I think he wants to say some things because it does concern them too, and what we've got going on there too. So, sir, we'd like for you to come forward if you could. Mr. Gleason.
My name is Joe Gleason. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Stonecrest Medical Center in Smyrna. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know at the end of the day, this is a city decision, but I would just like to share our concerns as a hospital entity in the county and just ask for your support in any interactions that you have with the city officials who would be making this decision. A lot of the points are points that were brought up already. Obviously, if county stations are closed or moved, that could have an impact on us. We've had a great relationship with Rutherford County EMS, as I'm sure all of the hospital entities would attest to. We've partnered with them on chest pain accreditation, stroke center of excellence, as well as our trauma program. And at the end of the day, all of those partnerships saves lives for our friends and family that we live with. I am a citizen of Murfreesboro. I live in the county. Obviously, I work in the county as well. And so just appreciate any support that you can give. I do not believe that having two different services would be beneficial. I think that it dilutes the efforts in the county. When you think about a hospital partnering with EMS for pre-hospital service, if you have two services that you're partnered with, that's two entities that you have to work with to try to train, build protocols, build relationships. We've seen the work that Rutherford County EMS has done with bringing patients to our hospital, particularly during this time with COVID, the protocols that they've put in place to keep themselves, their patients, and our hospital staff safe. And so the final point that I would make with you, just when you have these conversations, is the other thing to consider is now really the best time? So I understand I'm newer to this community, but I understand this has been an ongoing conversation for a long time. But I would just challenge the city officials to think about, is now the right time? We're in the middle of a national pandemic. It's a healthcare crisis that probably many of us have never seen in our lifetime. And so when you think about the paramedics that are on the truck, just the work that they do to save lives every day, and the work that they do in the community, and then on top of that, trying to protect themselves, their families, the community, the patients from this disease, and then now to add the stress of potentially moving stations, closing stations, what it will do to upset their lives, the communities that they've worked in for so long. I just challenge that now is not really the best time for that. So appreciate the opportunity to talk. I'll answer any questions anybody has for me.
I'd like to make one comment about HCA Stonecrest. I want to thank you for you thinking about our needs and the contribution of the 5,000 PPEs that you have given to our EMS and the EOC as we distribute those out. So we certainly thank you for being a community partner there.
You're welcome. And as I know Carl mentioned it too, but we're starting the paramedic rotation through the OR, so we've gotten that signed. It's going to be a great opportunity for those medics to continue to practice those skills. Because I came from a hospital that did have an EMS service, and so I've been on the back of the truck with those medics, and it's not every day that you're intubating a patient. And so you think about, we want them to be as skilled as possible if they're in that situation, intubating someone that we love. And so it's a great partnership that we're able to have to get them in our ORs to practice that skill.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gleason? Mr. Phillips?
Stay put. I'm not necessarily directing this at you, but since I'm 100 times smarter than Commissioner Gammon here, I guess I need to show my ignorance. I really need to understand from the beginning that how it's going to affect us, 42% of our budget, and how it's going to affect the city of Murfreesboro. What's the effect? Why would they do something? How are they going to save money? How could that possibly happen? If we will continue to provide services for all of Rutherford County, wouldn't the tax base still include everyone in the county, including citizens of Murfreesboro? So how is it going to be a zero-based thing for Rutherford County, for the city of Murfreesboro, compared to what? What are they paying right now? That's what I don't get. How is it going to save them money, and what are they paying right now?
Well, of course, as they're county taxpayers as well, and I'm not real sure, Speaker Pro Tem Phillips, as to how they think, but they had 6 quotes. One they discarded. They have 5, and I think all of them we haven't actually heard, nor the councilmen have heard. But I think that they say that they're all going to be at zero base. We were asked the question, why didn't we turn in a bid? And the response was from Director Clark, well, why should we turn in a bid on an RFP when you don't think that we're up to your par? Which was a pretty good point. Why turn one in if we're doing good enough, you ought to stay where you're at. So how they think it, they think that we should right size our business plan, if you will, down to whatever they take. They say that they're going to consume about 62% of our calls that we're currently going on now, and we'll have to downsize, and somehow they think that they're going to save that money. It's probably going to go through 1 or 2 of the hospitals, I would say, that turned in a bid, and more than likely they're going to subcontract that ambulance service out, and they'll handle the billing. The hospital will handle the billing, and they'll subcontract to another carrier. They haven't disclosed that information when they, I believe when they opened the RFPs, week before last or last week, whenever they opened RFPs, they said that they would take it all under advisement and then let everybody know at that point in time it would become public knowledge and public information. So we're kind of caught, you know, every time they asked us to do something, we would respond, like in co-locating. And since I couldn't get the numbers, I did find out in some of my investigations that back before I actually came into office, that there was a proposal between our EMS and their fire and rescue as far as the primary PSAPs, which is at the Sheriff's Department. He's a secondary PSAP, okay? Meaning that he gets the call secondary. Our Sheriff's Department gets it first, their police department gets it first, and then they will end up calling for an EMS vehicle to be sent, okay? And they said that was a lot of the issues about not getting the calls. Our ambulance would show up before their fire truck showed up, and there was a lot of tension between the two agencies. But going back, prior to me getting there, there was an opportunity to virtually co-locate us together for $6,900. I told the mayor sitting in my office last month, I'll pay your $6,900 and I'll pay our $6,900 to where the equipment will be put at the 911 location out on Blaze and Fortress. I will pay for that to where when the 911 call comes in, that both PSAPs get the information at the same time, and it takes away their argument as far as them getting the call first versus us getting the call first. That's just one of many.
I'm still at a loss as to where anyone's going to save any money. We still will provide ambulance service.
We have to, in the rural areas, in Eagleville, Rockville, Smyrna, Laverne.
The citizens of Murfreesboro are still going to be paying the exact same amount, or if we have to increase, could potentially pay more. Is that a
Well, I think
correct?
I think it's the way it's said that they're going to do it for free. It's been said that they're going to get it for free, whereas the city government doesn't have to pay for it, okay? So right now, as Chairman said and the Director said, they're shifting the cost from us writing off those debts for those people who can't pay, and it's going to be shifted over to the private sector, and they're not going to write them off. They're going to come after them and try to collect that money. So it's shifting to their medical plan, and if it can't be collected there, then it's going to go to a collection agency, whereas we write it off.
I'm getting a better understanding. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner?
I'm so happy to see from Stonecrest and the ambulance working together. So I'm so delighted to see and really happy because, had done a wonderful job. I saw your pictures and carry the babies and everything, and that's helped a great deal. When you mentioned, from here to there's about 6 minutes and so forth. This has served the population very well. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Gavin.
Chairman. Like Commissioner Phillips said, and I think Mr. Gurley did too, there's a lot of work to be done on this. So I hope you guys have sharpened your pencil. But the kicker is, this goes back to how planning comes about. And you're probably going to need more than just 3, but you always have the best case scenario plan. You have the one you can really like and be okay with, then you got one that just sucks. Just what it is. Get by, and sometimes we try to get by too much. And some people may shoot me for saying that, but it goes back again, and I'm not going to beat this dead horse. You just got to put a lot of stuff on paper, pencil it up, look at the finance side of it, see what the losses are, but see what the gains are going to be, however this thing's approached at the same time. And so if it's inevitable it's going to happen, then we got to face the piper on that. We don't have a choice. Now, I don't know, I got tidbits of what you're saying, Mayor. Did I hear that they're going to private theirs? Is that what
that what?
Did you say they were going to private or just outsource the billing?
They're going private.
So the city firemen are not going to take calls anymore then?
No, the firemen will make those calls. They'll continue just like they're doing.
They still got paramedics.
Still got paramedics and on their fire trucks, and then they're going to have an ambulance service doing the same thing that they're doing.
Yeah, they're going to have ambulances at the fire station. I mean, they kind of do now, but don't.
We haven't. Nobody's seen the RFP as to who's going to do what. I ask, could we? I've talked to some of the councilmen. I said, I'm willing, because they wanted our raw data, okay, and actually threatened a subpoena to get the raw data from our PSAP. So we gave them the raw data. The raw data, they analyzed it in a 24-hour period, going back for I don't know how many months, looking at the times on ambulance calls, and it was really not good data, because let's take, for example, if a call came in to Mercersburg Police Department and they go on the scene, they've been there for 45 minutes, and then they call for EMS, call for an ambulance, our ambulance shows up, the clock started running from the time that it came into the primary PSAP for the city, and then so they're looking at those charts that we pulled that raw data. I suggested that we go to MTSU, or we go to the director, what's the gentleman's name, Chris, that's over the EMS for the state. There's a gentleman who does this, who could actually come in and study the actual data on response times to see, because they said our raw data says that our response times are between 11 and 12 minutes versus our 6 minutes that we keep saying that we're so proud of.
Well, I just know, like I said, the interminglings all the years, because I've worked with these guys for a long time. I just know dealing with city police officers and, Smyrna, Laverne, all this, and also dealing with the firemen's incident command situations and all that, all the training we did, is that they already had in place for a number of years people that are paramedics and everything, and I don't think you all agree with that, right? And so they have a fire station. When they build now, they're building an extra bay here and there. So they obviously can't use the trucks they're using now to respond, just like on the square here or any place else. So some of that cost is they've already ate it up in that sense. Now, who knows what they're going to do overall. I don't know how they can do it and not increase taxes in the city. So I don't know if they can or not, or it's beyond a referendum in the city for citizens or what. I don't know. But it just it's a lot of work to do. Thank y'all for having a medical man here. It's awesome. It makes me feel better. So also with that thought, I think some of these communities would like to see some stations out there so they can feel a little more comfortable too, just like you had a take-home car program with the deputies. There's no proof here that it eliminates or solves crime, but it sure makes you feel good.
Thank you, sir. Other? Thank you, sir.
To let everyone know that we are, myself and Director Hudgens, we're attempting to work with Murfreesboro City Fire and the city to make sure that the needs in the city are met, response times to philosophies, protocols, some of those things that I think our paramedics and EMTs will see here soon. So there is a positive as of last Wednesday, and we're going to continue to try to make a better partnership than we have in the past. And I think that that's a priority of ours. At the same time, as we work through this, we're making a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Once we find the financial picture, then we can make our operational picture, if that makes sense. So we're in the midst of doing that collectively with Miss Melanie, several people around the table. We've met several times considering what would this look like. Some of it is grim. Once we look and seek attorney advice, and we have, and hopefully we can have a ruling from the attorneys to see how we can proceed as far as funding, and then we would get our operational picture as well. But we felt like that it was, we was asked by the chairman to provide the information that we have right now and to let you guys know what's transpiring in the background.
What I want to tell you too, they have put together a lot of the information that they have worked from. I think it's about 5 pages, and we're going to get that to you. We're going to send it to all the commissioners electronically. I think you said tomorrow, didn't you? So you'll have this hard copy for information, so you'll have it from there. So the whole idea of this is just to put it on your radar so you're aware of what's going on and what we're doing here. Any other questions? Any other comments? Commissioner?
I'm my own worst enemy, and I just don't know when to shut up at times, but the city of Murfreesboro has a history of being a pretty well-run city, well-managed city. And I'm, in my heart, I'm positive that they are approaching it from a perspective that it's in the best interest of their city, of their citizens to do this, just like a police department, just like a fire department, those types of things. So I'm convinced that they are positive that this is, before they do it, they would be positive that this is in the best interest of the citizens of Murfreesboro to do that. So I guess I'm trying my best to figure out where we fit into this. If we can share information to them that we think that they don't have that would influence that decision, I think that's the approach that we need to be taking. And from what I'm hearing, that's what we're doing.
That's what this is.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Okay. Mayor, do you have any other business?
No, sir.
All right. Any other business needs to come before this committee? If not, we are adjourned.